I have a question. What is the Democrats' plan for if they take back power in office? Because if I'm keeping track, the Republicans had Project 2025, which is like over halfway implemented, and now they also have Project 2026, and all I'm hearing is that we don't want to use Palestine as our litmus test.
Juicy Crone is one of my mutuals on TikTok, and I really enjoy her content, even though we don't always agree on every single issue. And I wanted to take some time and reply to this video. Obviously, I'm going to repost this on YouTube. So a lot of people on YouTube may not be aware of the TikTok discourse right now about whether or not we should be using Palestine as a litmus test when it comes to Democratic candidates for office, particularly for Congress and for the Senate. Specifically, a lot of this debate is around Jasmine Crockett and her run for Senate in Texas. And a bunch of my mutuals are in Texas, and they have made videos being like, hey, how about you let Texas worry about whether or not we want to vote for Jasmine? And I am somebody who really believes in representative democracy. I'm taking the lead from Indivisible on this. I completely agree that we have representative democracy, and that means all Americans get a voice. Well, okay. If it worked correctly in a representative democracy, it means that we all get representation in government. We loan our little bit of power to somebody that we vote for who is elected to govern on our behalf. We are a hugely geographically, culturally, ethnically diverse nation, and that's why representative democracy is so important for us. And it means that we don't all elect exactly the same people. The kind of person that's going to get elected in, like Lubbock, Texas is going to be very different than somebody who is elected by the people in Portland, Oregon. Likewise, if you go over to Eastern Oregon, they're going to elect somebody very different because we are really diverse people. And I think that that's a good thing when we have a diversity of voices and opinions in government. The problem is that we are entrenched in this two-party system where most of our elected officials have no interest in representing us at all. They want to represent dark money, foreign, APAC money, corporate money, billionaire money. They work for those guys. They don't work for us. Now, let's be really clear here. Jasmine Crockett does not take APAC money, and I think that she does want to represent the people of Texas. I think that as somebody in Oregon, I should have an opinion about anybody who is elected in Congress. I should be free to be like, wow, I think that person would be terrible for a number of reasons. I've been very critical of elected officials in other states, Lisa Murkowski in Alaska. But at the end of the day, I don't get a vote for that person. I don't get a vote for that candidate. The people of that district or that state do. That is their representative. One of the big reasons I think we need campaign finance reform. We should not have money pouring in from other states. We should not have money pouring in from other countries to interfere with races in other districts or states. Yeah, we should be free to have our opinion, but at the end of the day, it's those folks who get to vote. It's their representative. It's their senator. But getting back to what Juicy Crone posited at the beginning of that video, like what is it the Democrats are doing? What's their plan? Should we have a litmus test for a Democratic candidate? I don't really agree that a litmus test is helpful. We're looking at limited choices in front of us. Part of the reason we need to be involved in the primary is because that's where we actually have more impact. We have more choices on the table. When we get to the general election, it's like a Democrat, whether they're progressive or whether they're a corporate Democrat versus a literal fascist. And unfortunately, we don't have more than an entrenched two-party system right now. I would love it. I think America would be a better, more stable country. Our democracy would be more stable if we had 3, 4, 5 parties viable on a national level, but we don't. So there's the fantasy in my head of what I would like in terms of options, and then there's the reality in front of us right now. So we have to focus on the primaries because that's where we, the people, have the most choice. That's why Indivisible has Indivisible 2026, a plan to get corporate money, corporate establishment Democrats out of office to elect progressives who care about the people, whether those progressives are affiliated with the DSA or the WFP or not. We want to vote for people who represent us and not dark money. So I think it is far too unnuanced to treat it like we need to have a litmus test. We're capable of being far more complex and far more sophisticated in our voting processes. Now, I have seen a number of creators saying that they do have a litmus test, a number of Texans saying that they do have a litmus test. And that litmus test is, can the Democratic candidate defeat a literal fascist in a general election? And I think that is something we should bring into our calculation, right? That should enter into our calculus when we are determining who we want to vote for. It is definitely the solidly blue districts and states where we can push for far more progressive candidates. Here in Portland, Oregon, right? My congresswoman and one of my senators, Jeff Merkley, who I love dearly, are both up for re-election. A Democrat is going to win both of those positions no matter what. So now that is where we have the most impact, where we can push for folks who have a plan. Because again, getting back to Juicy Crone's initial question, what is the Democrats' plan? Corporate establishment Democrats don't have a fucking plan. Chuck Schumer doesn't. Clearly, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries don't have a plan. Last week, Hakeem Jeffries released the new slogan for the Democrats. It's all ceiling, no floor. No, okay, I totally bungled that. It's strong floor, no ceiling. But when I read it initially, I was like, actually, there's no floor. There's no depths to which you will not sink. There's no bottom to your approval rating. So in my head, it still gets stuck at no floor. But they're saying Hakeem Jeffries thinks that this is a good slogan. This encapsulates the fight and the future and the dreams and the plans of the Democratic Party. Strong floor, no ceiling. What does that mean? What does that mean? Because I hate to say it, the Democrats have a lower approval rating than Donald Trump. I hate to say it, but who has the lowest approval rating of any of our elected officials on a national level? It's the leader of the Senate Democrats, Chuck Schumer. They don't have a comprehensive plan. Now, at a town hall earlier this year, my Congresswoman Maxine Dexter said the Democrats are working on a Project 2029. Cool, where the fuck is that? Where is it? What are the details? What have y'all done to advance that plan? Because I'm looking at Chuck Schumer and the DCCC dumping a shit ton of money into the same old, stodgy, ancient corporate establishment Democrats. Like, why are you funneling money and support to Janet Mills in Maine? She's going to be 80 if she's elected. Chuck Schumer is fundraising for what's her name, Angie Craig Schumer in Minnesota, a conservative establishment Democrat. They're playing by the same outdated playbook that doesn't work in our reality. It doesn't work in the United States in 2025 and 2026. They're operating in the past. They don't have a plan for the future. It's like, we're just going to keep trying the same old and hope that magically it all comes together. There is no forward-looking plan. They don't want reform because they want to continue to have their same controlled opposition and enrich themselves and have just a little impact, right? I said in another video that they could have gotten universal health care for us under Obama. Like we could have had so much more, but they just offer a little bit of progress, far less than what we deserve. The Democrats never go full tilt, because really they work for corporations. They want to maintain the status quo of capitalism. They want to continue to work for the billionaires and not for us. And that's not everybody in the party. That is the folks who are running the show. They don't have a plan. Sorry, Juicy Crone, I'm sorry taking like a really long time to answer your question, but like they don't have a plan. So I don't think that it is helpful for us to look to candidates and say, I have this litmus test about whether I think that you have been as outspoken about Palestine as I would like. Even if you don't take AIPAC money, even if you don't vote for funding that does not include humanitarian aid for Gaza, I don't think you've taken a strong enough stance, so I'm going to nope you real hard. I think that we are able to conceptualize of the reality of the situation and that it's far more complex than that. The ineptitude of Democratic leadership, the fact that we don't have an anti-corruption and anti-fascist party in this country. We don't have a clear opposition party against fascism. The people of Gaza, the people of Sudan, the people of Congo, they are all struggling, suffering, dying because Donald Trump is in power, because the Republicans are in power. And it's desperately frustrating to see that the Democratic Party is failing to meet the moment. Individual specific elected officials are trying as hard as they can. And I do think it is incumbent upon us to help them push the party, reform the party. Because we can't magically constitute a viable third party between now and the midterms. Like we have to work with what's in front of us. Our elected officials are failing us. And so it's up to us to figure out how can we use them as a tool to help advance our cause. That's why I don't think electoralism on its own is going to fix this. This is not going to be fixed in the midterms because the Democrats don't have a plan beyond the midterms. They don't have a vision for the future of this country. much less a roadmap for how to get us out of this. They just don't. So if you want a litmus test, maybe have it be that. What is your step-by-step plan, Democratic candidate, to get us out of this mess? And how will you make sure it is enacted?